All right, hello everybody. Good morning. Happy March 9th. We're in week number 9, and we're here for my intro psych classes. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for all of you who are here with me at the moment. It's nice to have your company. Hopefully you can all hear me and see me okay. Somebody let me know if you can hear and see me just fine before I keep talking. Wait just a minute, just to make sure you can all hear and see me. All right. Oh, behind me? Yeah, yeah. I have a whole ton of Chuck E. Cheese pictures. Every time that we would go to Chuck E. Cheese, we would take one of the little pictures together, and I have quite a collection of them at this point. And then some of the pictures, yeah, that they drew for me. They're getting big now. They're in second and fourth grade, but I kept all of those, of course, because they're so sentimental, right? But thank you, and I'm perfect. I'm glad you can all hear me and see me okay. Uh, as I said, we are in week number 9, so we are past the halfway point of the semester at this point. I want to go over just a couple of thoughts really quickly from last week, and then we can talk about what we have due this week. Kind of a normal, typical week for us, where we have a chapter and a discussion and so on. But let's go through that. And of course, if you have questions at any point, feel free to ask. I would be happy to answer them for you. So let's go ahead and head over to Canvas so I can, of course, be mindful of your time. And as I said, if we scroll down, we are here. So we are in week number 9. Spring break is coming up in just a couple of weeks. If you are feeling a little bit burnt out, you are not alone. So hang in there. It is definitely coming. But at this point, we have gone through 8 weeks. We've taken 2 exams. We are past the halfway point of our semester. So let's go back to last week just for a minute, and then we can talk about what we have going on this week. So last week we were looking at chapter 8 related to cognition and looking at problem solving and some of those topics. Of course, we had the discussion last week, and then we did also have an exam last week as well. So let's take a quick look at the discussion. Most of you did a beautiful job, talking about what you think of when you think of intelligence. What are some of the things you can do to increase your intelligence? Then the biggest reason that people lost points was on this last bullet, though most of you did a beautiful job of talking about standardization, reliability, and validity as those 3 elements that we want to have in order to have a good test of intelligence. And some of you did a beautiful job of giving me examples and defining and describing them. I gave the example in the lecture of a scale, right? Using a scale that you would have to measure weight, that you want the scale to be standardized, so a pound is equal to a pound on every scale. You want it to be reliable or consistent, that when you step on it, your numbers are relatively consistent, maybe a little bit of variability depending on what you ate or didn't eat, but it's relatively consistent to each other. And that you also want it to be valid or accurate, that it is reflecting what you actually weigh. So really nicely done, though a few of you not quite giving me enough was the number one reason that people lost points. Somebody asked, when is spring break? I love it. You're thinking about it. Me too. Our spring break is at the very end of the month. So it's that last week of this month. It's the 28th of March through the 3rd of April, right? So it's definitely coming up, just a couple of weeks, and we are there. I'm going on a cruise, so I'm very excited for spring break for sure. I'm ready to gain some weight and do some serious eating on my cruise. That is definitely on my agenda. So yeah, but back to this. The only other reason that people lost points was just not replying to a classmate. So just continue to do that all the way through. Should be doing that every week. Don't forget to answer my questions fully and really elaborate. But most of you are doing a beautiful job and earning full points, are really, really close to. And I've been really happy of what I'm seeing out of you. So very nicely done on the discussion last week. The exam last week, we also had exam number 2, and I sent out an email with some statistics on that Monday night, but for the most part, people did really well. The average was just a little bit lower than the first exam, and that is sometimes something that we see when we're kind of in the middle of the semester and people have a little of that fatigue setting in. There is also a little bit of terminology in this last unit that can be tricky. As we were talking about learning and conditioning, there's a lot of terminology that goes with that. But for the most part, there were a lot of A's, a lot of B's on the exam. Most of you finishing with plenty of time to spare. I mean, the average was a good like 15 minutes short of the amount of time that you have to take the test. So for the most part, I'm seeing a lot of really wonderful things out of all of you on the exams, on the discussions. I want to encourage you, and I do this every time we take a test, continue using the exams as a learning opportunity. Right, so if you scored really well on this test and the first test, clearly you've fallen into a rhythm that's working for you. If you wish that you had done a little bit better, you still have 2 more exams and half of the class to go. So this is still a great time to kind of mix things up a little bit, maybe change the way that you're studying. If you didn't use the study guide, use the study guide for the next exam. Start studying week by week as you go through instead of waiting to the last minute. And if you ever want to, talk with me about, strategies or what you could do differently, I'm definitely here. But, for the most part, a lot of you, as I said, are doing very, very well on the materials in this class. And that makes me very happy to see. So hopefully you're feeling good. Before we move on to week number 9, are there any questions at all about week number 8? Anything that I can answer for you about the exam or the discussion or anything last week before we move on to this week? I'll wait just a moment just to see. All right. If you think of anything, of course, feel free to put that in the chat, and I will definitely be happy to answer that for you. Otherwise, let's look at week number 9. And as I said, we kind of have a usual week. For the most part, we do have one other little element that I will talk about with you as when we get there in a moment. But our topic for this week is motivation. What motivates us to do the things that we do, and where does that energy come from, and so on. So make sure that you read chapter 9 in the ebook, like usual. Make sure that you click through and read through everything here in the lecture for chapter 9. You can read or listen to the summary and objectives. There's some beyond the book stuff. I made a little video about the survival instinct, a little bit more about fad diets, which you were thinking about for the discussion this week. In pop culture, some documentaries and movies and TV shows that are related to motivation in some capacity. A lot of documentaries and movies related to weight loss or being overweight, and then a few also related to things like PTSD and measuring motivation at work and so on. So I have a couple of those things here for you. The key terms in review, if you wanted to be studying as we go along, these are the key terms from chapter 9 that you could be studying this week if you wanted to kind of work as we go along. And then the application here, is a little bit more about how you could use this information. I have some information here about how to lose weight and also where to get help for eating disorders, which was another topic that we covered this week. You don't have midterms for our class, but it's definitely about that time if you have midterms in other classes for sure. Right? We have 4 exams, so no midterm or final necessarily, but that is relatively common and something I'm sure a lot of you are preparing for. Don't forget to also watch the lecture video. As usual, I made a lecture video of me with PowerPoint slides where you might want to take notes and pay attention. All the materials here will appear on the exam, so you definitely want to watch that and pay attention and so on. Your discussion for this week, discussion number 9. As always, here is my little video introduction here in my office, right? So make sure you watch that for me to give you a little more information. The topic for this week that you're going to be thinking about are diets, right? And so what I want you to do is to think of or choose a fad diet. Now, this can be something that you heard about on TV or read about in the media or social media, maybe something you've tried or a family member has tried. But what I want you to do is to conduct some research on that fad diet. And then you're going to report the main components of that fad diet. So how does it work? What are you required to do or not do, eat or not eat? What are the timeline for results? If you're talking about something like intermittent fasting, what are the rules for that? But what are the fad diet components, and really kind of describing that a little bit. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of your diet? You could also think about this as like the rewards and dangers. Most fad diets do have some kind of downsides to them that you could talk about a little bit. And then finally, what role do you think that the media, movie, television, music, magazines, etc., social media as well, plays in contributing to the negative self-views that often accompany a desire to lose weight and or eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia, and definitely explain. So as you are answering these questions, right, make sure that you answer them fully, give me lots of detail. You'll hit reply right here when you're ready to answer. And then also don't forget to reply to a classmate. So if I really want to comment on Julia's grapefruit diet, I can hit reply here and talk about that. Or the keto diet, right, and so on. So a few of you have already done this, and make sure that you're replying not only to my questions, but also to a classmate. So as always, it's worth 15 points, and you can earn 13 for your responses to my questions and 2 for your responses to a classmate. The other thing that we do have due this week, remember a few weeks ago after exam number 1, I gave you a self-assessment. Now you have your second self-assessment this week. This is worth 5 points. So you definitely want to make sure that you are getting those points. Please be honest. It doesn't benefit you or me in any way if you don't tell me the truth. So please be honest. It won't count against you in the slightest. But I want you to click on this self-assessment here, and you're going to be answering a couple of questions about how you feel about the class so far, your progress and approaches to learning since self-assessment number 1. So when you're ready, you'll hit take the survey. And this is worth 5 points. It's 5 questions. It should be pretty quick for you to do. But what's one thing you're doing really well in the course? That's question 1. Question 2, I am currently earning the grade I want in this class, true or false? Question 3, if you responded to false, what's one thing you could do to improve your performance? If you responded to true, how could you maintain your performance as we continue through the second half of the course? Number 4, in your last self-assessment, you reflected on your exam number 1 score and how you could make changes to be even more successful. Where are you in terms of incorporating those changes? How did you do on exam number 2? Did you make the changes that you were hoping to do? And then number 5, which topic, if any, are you finding the most difficult to understand? And once you have finished typing all your responses, you'll hit submit quiz. You have as much time as you would like to answer this. It's worth 5 points. So please do take a few minutes to do this. It gives me some valuable information. And I think it gives you a really great opportunity to reflect on how you're doing in the class as well. So those are the big things for this week, right? So you are reading chapter 9 in the textbook, completing the lectures for chapter 9, both the Canvas one and also the lecture video. Discussion number 9, and then don't forget the self-assessment piece, which is worth 5 points. I do have an optional extra credit question to give you in a moment. And of course, like always, I will post a recording of this later on today. So within a couple of hours, I will post right here underneath the extra credit. I will post the recording like I always do. But are there any questions for me at all? I do have a couple of reminders for you, of course, but any questions, comments, thoughts, or anything, please feel free to put those in the chat. Otherwise, a few reminders for you. As always, if you could please take a moment to double check your subscriptions. Again, very few of you are still subscribed. So it saves me a lot of time. I'm sorry to keep asking, but so many of you have fallen off. And you can see it in the chat here. Chance, Solomon, Janelle, Bernaldo, Pauline. Let's see who else that's on here. Joelle. If you don't have the little football cake next to your name, then you have fallen off. So if I just read off your name or you notice that it's expired, please take a minute to go onto my page on Twitch and resubscribe for free. I really appreciate it. The other reminder, our next Twitch live stream is on Wednesday next week. So next Wednesday, I wrote love stream, let me fix that. Our next live stream is on next Wednesday, which is the 16th. So Wednesday 3/16 at 11:30 in the morning. So our next Twitch live stream, remember we moved to Wednesdays, is next Wednesday the 16th at 11:30 in the morning. Otherwise, let me give you the Twitch extra credit question so that you can answer that and get those points. This is something that we are covering this week, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And this is something you'll find out about in the lecture and then also in the chapter, of course. But the extra credit question is, what is the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation? You want to define and give an example. Okay, so both, right? What is the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic? Define and give an example. When you're ready to do that, you'll head over to Canvas and you'll click on that optional Twitch extra credit number 9. And then up here at the top, you can click Start Assignment and submit your response anytime before Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So those are the big things for this week. Kind of a usual, typical week, other than that self-assessment number 2. So please feel free to take a moment to do all those things. Make sure that you are doing the extra credit to get those bonus points. I know, and if you're having a hard time resubscribing for free, if you can't figure it out, that's okay. There is that purple drop down on the Twitch page, but for some reason it seems to be giving some people a hard time. So just do your best. That's all you can do. And then what I will do, I'm going to hang out here for the next 7-8 minutes or so. If you do have any other questions before I have my other class today, I would be happy to answer them for you. Otherwise, thank you so much for all of you who are on here with me live. I really appreciate your company. Feel free to put any questions you might have in the chat, and I will, of course, answer them for you. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves and hang in there. Spring break, as I said, is coming in just a couple of weeks. So yeah, please don't pay for it. So if you can't figure out how to resubscribe, then that's okay. Don't pay for it. I never want you to pay for that service. It should be free for you, or you can just follow me. But if you are able to figure it out, thank you so much for doing that. It does make my life easier. So I'm going to minimize my video, but I will hang out for a little while. If you do have any other questions for me, please feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, as I said, have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves, hang in there, and I will hope to see you all next Wednesday for our next live stream. Week number 10. Hard to believe it. That will be in week 10 next week. Thank you as well. Thank you so much for joining me. I know I kind of felt fast today for whatever reason, but we got through everything like normal. But thank you. Oh, I'm glad you're having fun in the class. Thank you, and thank you for the suggestion chance on the book to read. I've added it to my summer reading list. So thank you so much. So when you remove a door, right, you're removing something, right? So that's negative, as you said, right? Taking away is negative. But the point was, right, if you are punishing somebody by removing the door, right, that would be negative punishment. You're taking away something that they want to give them privacy. So yes, in that case, it would be negative punishment. Versus if you added something that they didn't like let's say you added chores, that would be positive punishment. So I know positive and negative can get a little bit confusing because we instantly think good and bad, right? But whenever you are taking something away, that would be negative, and when you're adding, that would be positive. So in that case of removing the door, that would be negative punishment. I hope that helps a little bit, Pauline. Sure. So whenever you're reinforcing means to strengthen or increase a response. So, right, like if you call in for reinforcements, you need some more strength, right? So whenever you're reinforcing something, you're trying to increase. And whenever you're punishing, you're trying to decrease. So punishment has the goal of decreasing a reaction or a response, and reinforcement has the goal of increasing or making something happen more frequently. Hopefully, maybe that helps a little bit. right? So if somebody doesn't clean their room, right, and you want to punish them for not cleaning their room, right, in hopes that they stop doing that in the future, right, then you would be punishing them. Yes, right? So you take the door away as a negative punishment. You remove something that they wanted, that privacy and the privacy that the door would afford them. And so you're negatively punishing them by removing something that they wanted in order to discourage them from not cleaning their room again in the future. I hope that helps a little bit. Yeah, no worries. You too. Thank you. No, no worries. It's a tricky concept, and there are a lot of people, like even people who teach psychology, who mess these things up. We interviewed people, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 years ago. We did a round of interviews, and there were people who have degrees in psychology who were confusing these things. So I think you just always have to ask yourself, are you trying to increase or decrease a behavior? And that tells you whether it's reinforcement or punishment. And then did you do that through adding something or taking something away? And then that will tell you if it's negative or positive. But again, negative and positive, people tend to instantly think of good and bad. So it can be a little bit confusing for sure. So don't feel bad if you were a little confused. You're definitely not alone, is my point.